Hi, I'm Dan from Newsweed.com. Today is May 27th, 2021, this year of our Lord. And here's the news. Yesterday, gunfire erupted at about 6:30 a.m. at a light rail yard in the heart of Silicon Valley. The gunman, Samuel Cassidy, 57, a maintenance worker, killed 9 people yesterday in San Jose. He effectively earned $102,000 last year plus $20,000 in overtime, and he was that unhappy. And his ex-wife, Cecilia Nelms, said he talked about killing people 10 years ago. Okay, and Biden says that the U.S. has had enough of this. And also the California governor, Gavin Newsom, says it begs the damn question, what the hell is going on in America? Otherwise, Republicans unveiled a $928 billion plan for infrastructure to counter Biden's lowered plan of $1.7 trillion. There is also the question of what is actually infrastructure. The Republicans want to keep it strictly roads, bridges, and broadband, whereas the Democrats want to include the likes of like child care centers and other green energy investments. So that is also a question in the bill. And also another question is, where are they going to get the money? The Republicans want to shift unspent COVID-19 funds over to this bill, whereas opposed to Biden wants to put an increase on the corporate tax. So they have a May 31st deadline to make progress on this bipartisan deal. There's plenty of room for them to compromise, and that's what they should do. Elsewhere in Mexico, another candidate has been assassinated, making him the 34th murdered candidate this season. Alma Barragan was shot dead on Tuesday while campaigning for mayor of the city of Moroleon. 2 other people were injured at the site. The president of Mexico said that it was, quote, without a doubt the work of organized criminal gangs working to scare voters away from the polls. So the cartel basically wants to put sympathetic candidates in office on a municipal level, and they are trying to work from there on their way up. In other news, Elizabeth Warren, the Democratic U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, put the gears to the CEO of J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon. Let's see what she has to say about overdraft fees.
Bank regulators worried about the health of our biggest banks. So the regulators were generous. They gave the banks all kinds of help. They delayed compliance for important regulations. They relaxed standards. They even allowed banks to avoid paying overdraft fees if their accounts at the Federal Reserve had a negative balance. Now, when asked why they were being so generous to the banks, the regulators explained that the banks would, in turn, help their customers. So how exactly did that work out? At the start of the pandemic, bank regulators issued joint guidance that recommended that banks waive overdraft fees for their own customers. In other words, if someone was laid off, for example, and bounced a check, the regulators recommended that the bank automatically waive the fees and let people get caught up without paying $35 every time they stumbled. The same way the bank could do at the Fed if it overdrew. Let me ask the CEOs of the 4 banks, Citibank, Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo. The 4 banks that collectively manage tens of millions of checking accounts for customers. While you automatically and at no cost got complete protection from overdraft fees at the Federal Reserve, could you please raise your hand if you gave the same automatic protection to your customers and automatically waived all of their overdraft fees? Okay, I'm not not seeing anyone raise a hand, and that's because none of you gave the same help to your customers that the bank regulators extended to you, help that the bank regulators recommended that you give. So let me focus in on this just a little bit here. Let me start with you, if I can, and ask the question about whether or not any of you didn't automatically waive. I just want to take this on down. So let's take a look at who actually paid these fees. According to Pew Charitable Trusts, it's disproportionately working people making less than $50,000 a year, African Americans, Hispanics, people who are struggling to get by. And how much did they pay in overdraft fees? They paid a combined $4 billion. So let me start with you, Mr. Diamond. You are the star of the Overdraft show. Your bank, JP Morgan, collects more than 7 times as much money in overdraft fees per account than your competitors. So, Mr. Diamond, how much did JP Morgan collect in overdraft fees from their consumers in 2020?
Well, I think your numbers are totally inaccurate, but we'll have to sit down privately and go through
these
that.
These are public numbers.
And I also want to point out we did not overdraft.
Can you just answer my question?
We
how
did
much
not
did JP Morgan collect?
We did not overdraft at the Fed account, and at any request,
so you never.
Said they needed,
I'm sorry,
they needed
Mr. Diamond.
relief,
That was Mr. Diamond. That was not the question.
On request.
Did you had an automatic protection? So I'm asking. You were recommended, the regulators recommended you offer that same kind of protection to your customers. How much, in fact, did JP Morgan collect in overdraft fees from their customers in 2020? Do you know the number?
I don't know the number in front of me. But
well, I actually have the number in front of me.
Upon request,
$1.463 billion. That's nearly $1.5 billion that you collected from your customers. Now, do you know how much JP Morgan's profit would have been in 2020 if you had followed the recommendation of the regulators and waived overdraft fees to help struggling consumers? In other words, without that overdraft money, would your bank have been in financial trouble?
We waived the fees for customers upon request if they were under stress because of COVID.
You know, I appreciate that you want to duck this question. Do you know how much your profits would have been if you'd actually waived overdraft as the regulators recommended?
We waived the fees every time.
The answer is your profits would have been $27.6 billion. I did the math for you. So here's the thing. You and your colleagues come in today to talk about how you stepped up and took care of customers during the pandemic. And it's a bunch of baloney. In fact, it's about $4 billion worth of baloney, but you could fix that right now. Mr. Diamond, will you commit right now to refund $1.5 billion you took from consumers during the pandemic?
No.
Right now?
No.
No. That's right. Over the past year, you could have passed on the breaks that you got from the Fed to your customers, but you didn't do it. Everybody else here, those other 3 bankers, will any of you agree to refund the overdraft fees that you collected? I didn't think so. So no matter how you try to spin it, this past year has shown that corporate profits are more important to your bank than offering just a little help to struggling families, even when we are in the middle of a worldwide crisis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Warren. Senator.
It's nice to see America's bank standing up for its people. Okay, in marijuana news, New Mexico regulators have proposed rules for governing the kickstart of their recreational marijuana market. Okay, they will release 3 types of cultivation licenses for growers, ranging from 201 to 4,500 plants, which is nearly triple the amount of 1,750 for medical marijuana cultivators. Other rules also is that state licenses have an annual increase of 500 plants annually. They're allowed to increase. Dispensaries, they're saying, should sell at least 25% of their product to medical marijuana patients. This way, medical marijuana patients are not in shortage from recreational users. Applicants also must prove their valid water rights and explain any past criminal convictions to the satisfactory of their government. And also, they cannot operate within 300 feet of schools or child care centers. Elsewhere in marijuana news, Texas has approved a medical cannabis reform bill upping the cap from 0.5% THC to 1% THC, and also adding cancer and PTSD as qualifying conditions for medical marijuana, which is an extremely watered down version from the House version that said that should have a 5% THC cap, and also had chronic pain as a qualifying condition that they eliminated in the Senate version. Which I don't need to tell any of you that is complete baloney, and why are politicians deciding what doctors should be deciding? So that's it in the news today. I want to remind you to go over to Newsweed.com and take our Newsweed General Interest Survey. We want to hear about what you want to hear. And also, we have the 2021 Newsweed.com's poetry contest coming up with a grand prize for first place of $250. So the deadline is October 31st. You got plenty of time, but don't wait too long. My name is Andy Camp, Newsweed.com. You have a pleasant day.